All right, it is 4:30. We'll call this meeting to order. If we can get a roll call.
Derek is absent right now. Neil.
Here.
Jared here. Katie.
Here.
Lane.
Here. All right, we'll move on to flag salute and prayer. If you'll stand and join with us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, if you'll bow your head. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening to ask you for guidance as we make important decisions about the future of our school district. The youth who are a part of it and the staff that also turn the wheels. We ask for you to grant wisdom and discernment to all of us in this room and ask that you also be with those in the district as they travel to and from during this busy season at the end of the year. We ask all this in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Public participation? Nothing? Okay. All right, we'll move on to part 3, special recognition district retirees. We've got 2 of them this year.
Yes, sir. We have 2, and the first one is Cindy Randolph. Cindy, there she is. Cindy has taught for 31 years. She has poured her heart and soul into teaching for 19 of those years right here in Piedmont. As she heads to retirement, she's headed for an open road as she's ready to ride a Harley Davidson motorcycle alongside her husband and unwind by the pool. She is most excited about to spend more time with their grandkids and kids and make some more memories. Cindy, thank you for making a difference for our kids.
Thank you.
Our other retiree is Lee Hughes. Lee, after 26 years in education, with the last 3 being in Piedmont, is stepping into retirement with plans to travel to visit wineries. Lee, if you need any help with that, no, I'm just teasing, and give this time to volunteer and work at the church. Lee is already on the lookout for a part-time job and to keep busy and stay connected. Lee, thank you for your dedication to our students. I think we're good.
All right. Thank you for your service to Piedmont. Kids are lucky to have people who are dedicated, especially spend that much time, especially in today's age of education when sometimes teachers aren't as appreciated as they should be. So thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 4, business items, part A, discuss and take possible action regarding revised rates of pay for fiscal year 25 to add Summer Pride High School Coordinator rate of $50 per hour.
We just like to have all these rates of pay published and on the website and available so that everybody knows when they sign up for that job what they're getting. And occasionally we have one that we don't have on there, and this is one. And so we're asking to put that on the rates of pay.
All right. Questions, comments? Nope. All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the revised rates of pay for fiscal year 25 to add Summer Pride High School Coordinator rate of $50 per hour.
I'll second.
Motion by Lane, second by Jared. Can we get a vote?
Neil.
Yes.
Jared, yes. Katie.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes. All right, moving on to item B. Discuss and take possible action regarding the negotiating team to represent the district in negotiations with the Piedmont Association of Educators for the 25-26 school year.
So we have a great relationship with our teachers union here in Piedmont, and we have the exact same team from the administration side and the teacher side that negotiated last year, and we'll do the same things. But we need your approval with those for the team.
Perfect.
I'll add, it's so nice. We have the kind of culture that can happen without a third party in between. So thank you all. Appreciate
Lots of
that.
people. I know a district that's spending $25,000 to have that done by a third party.
It's a big deal.
Any other questions, comments?
I make a motion, we approve the negotiating team to represent the district in negotiations with the Piedmont Association of Educators for the 25-26 school year.
All right, I'll second. So motion by Jared, second by Lane. Can we get a vote?
Neil?
Yes.
Jared, yes. Katie?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes. All right, moving on to Part C, discuss and take possible action regarding capturing kids' hearts and flipping leadership blueprint professional development service agreement, $42,500 from general fund.
So we're excited about capturing kids' hearts. My goal is to train every teacher and administrator in the district in capturing kids' hearts. Takes time, and it's very expensive. It's about $850 for the 2 days. Same thing with we'll train all of the administrators in the Flipping Leadership Blueprint. The best leadership training I've ever been through. Capturing kids' hearts really is about relationships and about knowing your kids, knowing all about kids that kids aren't ready to learn until you really know about what's going on with them. And sometimes you just have to read that. So 2-day training, I've never heard anyone say a negative word. That $42,500 is half price. The Capturing Kids' Hearts Foundation allowed us to write a grant for 50%, kind of get us started. And then my team is working with both our Piedmont Foundation and another donor to have some ongoing help with that. So we'll be able to do it faster than we could have if we get some help in that, and that's what we hope to do.
Questions, comments?
I'll make a motion to approve Capturing Kids' Hearts and Flipping Leadership Blueprint Professional Development Service Agreement for $42,500 from the general fund.
All right, I'll second. Motion by Neil, second by Lane. Can we get a vote?
Neil?
Yes.
Jared, yes. Katie?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes. All right, moving on to item E. I'm sorry. Jumped ahead there. Moving on to item D, discuss and take possible action regarding the Oklahoma State High School Clay Target League using the name of Piedmont High School, conditioned on acknowledgement by all participants that the league is not a district activity.
So this is not an OSSAA authorized activity, but it is a club for us. We have lots of clubs in our district. Clubs are approved at the site level, so PI's clubs are approved there. The high school approved theirs. This is a club, but one request that when we talk to the kind of the national sponsor, this Clay Target is a national. It goes on in a lot of states. Over 60,000 kids participate in this. So it's a league, and they'll compete against other schools that have the same thing, but it's a club, not a school-sponsored activity. So we have Joe, not Mitchell, Crawford. Joe Crawford's going to help us. He's just volunteering his time, basically, to be the sponsor for that. And we've got several other parents that are also going to be kind of co-sponsors of that. The only thing that when we talked to our attorney about this, he said, we just need to have a very well-defined what it is and what it isn't. And so we have a waiver that we'll ask them to fill out that basically says, you don't bring a gun to school. It's done on the weekends, and it is never okay to forget that you have a weapon in your car. Lots of other practical things. It should be good for a population of kids that may be doing some other activities and may not. And Katie may want to speak to it because she's been a part of this. So,
Yeah, this was brought to me by actually a few different parents that recommended this league for an opportunity for our students to get involved in something where, competitive, that's more individually scored. There's no tryout. There are going to definitely be stipulations for participation. I know that as we get started, we're going to look carefully at that. But yeah, we've got a lot of students in the district competing in this kind of activity through 4-H, and we're excited to let them compete wearing Piedmont. So I'm thankful that you helped see this through. We've been working on it for 60 days or so, and I'm thankful for all the help I've gotten, and Joe for stepping up. So I'm excited that I hope we can get this approved today.
So is this ninth grade and above?
Right now, I'm pushing for some other opportunities, but,
Okay.
and I know some other parents are as well, but I think that's our starting point that we're approving today.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Oklahoma State High School Clay Target League to use the name Piedmont High School conditioned on acknowledgement by all participants that the league is not a district activity.
I'll second.
All right, got a motion by Katie, and a second by Neil. Could we get a vote?
Neil,
Yes.
Jared, yes. Katie,
Yes.
Lane.
Yes. All right, now we move on to item E. Discuss and take possible action regarding a revision to board policy FES transfer policy.
So the the revision is about virtual students. We didn't have it clearly defined that virtual students were not part of our school capacity. So by law and through the transfer law that was passed in 2022, we have to 4 times a year, this board approves or reapproves capacity limits for each site. But we didn't have in there, we just rolled our virtual kids into that number. So if they were a high schooler, they counted as one of the high school students, one of our numbers, even though they weren't physically in the high school. So this will allow us to have, take virtual students that want to come to Piedmont, and they can play sports, they can do whatever activities, they have to be on campus 1 hour a day. And that's the law stipulation for that. And so we just asked our attorneys to rewrite the policy to make that where they would be eligible to come, and they still have to go through the OSSAA to get their approval to play sports or anything that's part of that.
Yeah, and I'll, just for full transparency, I mean, this was something that I know that Neil and Derek and I, we've been approached about it. I've got some of my connections that I still have in the education world. Excuse me. And some other districts, they are doing things very similar. We know there are schools that are taking virtual kids specifically for athletics, and they're doing it with the full intention for whatever sport that is. I mean, and that's basically having a policy in place that allows us to feel good about what we are doing and doing this the right way is the intent. And so it looks like, there's going to be a number of other districts going this direction as well. So I'm glad to see us getting this in place for us and doing it the right way. So Neil, if you want to say anything on it, you can as well.
I think you said it all. I think it just gives us an opportunity, I think, to put a policy in place that allows us to grow and kind of be with the changing times.
So Drew, how does the funding formula work for those? Do we get funding for those
We get
types of students?
the exact same amount of money that we get for a student that is
So
sitting in our seats all day as one that's virtual. So-
Financially, it's good for us
So
too.
financially, it's good. Now, we have 5 at the high school. We have 5 teachers that are solely work for virtual kids. They grade those virtual kids' papers. They do all the things. So we still have interaction with those kids. And if those teachers see that a kid hasn't been on online to look at their stuff, they call them up. They call up the parents. So there's still some work. The work is not as much as if they were in our seats every day.
Okay.
So going forward, we'll have a list of physical transfers and a list of physical transfer applicants, and we'll have a list of virtual transfer applicants?
Well, the law requires that we take everybody in the order that they come in. So for virtual, we're not setting a capacity limit. Right now, that's basically unlimited. If and when that became a problem, we couldn't handle it, which I don't see that being an issue. But if we did, then we would come to you and say, we need a capacity limit for virtual school. But right now, it's wide open. If somebody wants to come as a virtual student, they can come, and as long as they meet all the criteria in the transfer process, they get to come.
And they get to play sports if they attend a 1 hour
That's right.
on campus, which could include their sport.
That's right.
And that still doesn't feed into the normal capacity. It's in
That's
the
right.
virtual capacity.
That's right. It's really, I'd never thought of it. I talked to a friend of mine that works in another district as a large district that is an athletic director. And whenever I explained it to him, because I was kind of thinking at some point there's going to be, the other shoe was going to drop. He said, I think it's a great idea. And then he looked into it a little more and he said, I can tell you 3 schools that are doing it right now. So I think it's the right thing to do. I think we have the policy in place now. We just, we're doing it the right way. I feel good about it.
All right, any other questions, comments? All right,
I make a motion, we approve board policy FES transfer policy.
I'll second. Motion by Jared, second by Lane. Can we get a vote?
Derek,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Jared, yes, Katie,
Yes.
Lane.
Yes. Do we need to do anything else on just noting time? You got, okay. Figured you were on it. I just,
Do you want to put a demerit by his name? Go star.
I apologize for my tardiness.
all right, moving on.
No, go ahead.
Moving on to item F, discuss and take possible action regarding the adoption of board policy FNH, cell phone personal electronic device policy.
So you guys have had a chance to look at this, but it'd probably be good just to go back over it with everyone. So there's a law the governor signed last week, and it's a bell to bell, from the starting bell to the ending bell, ban on cell phones for kids, all ages, from pre-K, 12th grade. We have been looking and thinking about this for quite a while, so much so that Mark and his team, Mark and Lisa, brought in students and teachers from a variety of different schools to look at what they would recommend this policy be. The original policy that I sent you had allowed them to have their cell phones out at lunch at the middle school and high school. But the law took that away. So we rewrote the policy to match the law. And so the policy is that we have bell to bell, not having kids have cell phones. Mark, what do you got?
Consequences, we kind of, that's one of the purposes that we had pulled a 16-person, panel, included, IT. Can you hear me? It included IT, HR, assistant, superintendent, administrators from a variety of buildings, PI, middle school, high school. We're just looking, because, we were trying to get ahead of this. This has been kicking around with the potential of this bill. It passed through the House, it passed through the Senate, and then it was signed by the governor. So we've been working on this for, probably over 2 months, just so we could be prepared. I've talked to administrators in other schools that are starting right now, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do to meet the requirements for that law. So something that was discussed, something that was thought through and planned out. What do you have potential questions?
So is it my understanding next year we'll be able to kind of evaluate, make changes as needed?
That's exactly right. The law has a sunset, and it's 1 school year.
Okay.
So there's a total, what the legislators are betting on is that once everybody has cell phones out of their schools for a year, they go, we're not going back. There'll be some, maybe us, that say we want a little bit, maybe the lunch thing, But what'll happen in the spring of next year, Mark and Lisa and their teams will get together and talk to teachers and kids about what they want, what they liked about it, what they don't like about it, and then we'll make a recommendation to you. Keep it the same, make these modifications. But I want to remind you that when we do a policy, it's only good until you change that policy. So we could change this. Right now, it basically covers the law. But if there's one part in it that we'll talk about in a minute that's not in law, we are, Mark and his team would like to have the clock reset every quarter to give kids an opportunity. And I'll let him talk about that.
Yeah, one of the things we are measured upon with our A through F report card, one of them is chronic absenteeism. So with that, anytime a student is in school restriction or in out of school suspension, that counts against us in our attendance for chronic absenteeism. So, one of the things when you look at, behaviors, consequences, our consequences, we're aiming at changing a behavior. But, if we have a series of steps in place that continue to pull kids out of the classroom, whether they're in school restriction or out of school with those consequences, we're also taking hits on the chronic absenteeism side. So we feel like giving a reset each quarter would give the opportunity for students that may have had more than one offense an opportunity to kind of reset and get back to even.
I have one thing that I'm going to recommend that we change in the policy that's different. So I'm going to put it up there now, and it's the blue lettering. I want to strike in this first paragraph with number 1. It says middle school and high school PEDs must be turned off and put away. And right now it reads before the student enters the building. Mark made a good point this morning. We were talking and he said, we have kids that entered that building at 7 o'clock. We opened the doors at 7, but we're not having instruction until 7:50. That's when they go into class. So it would be kind of, it seems like it would be kind of punitive just to say, you got to have that when you walk in the door. So what I'm recommending is to put the language in that is in the actual law. And it would be this blue. It says put away from the first bell ringing to the start of the school day until the dismissal bell at the end of the school day. That's right out of the law. And that's what I'm recommending.
That makes sense to me. Jared, I think probably anybody that's been on the board known this is a little bit of a soapbox for me the last 8 months or so since I've been on the board. And I think I really appreciate you guys putting a lot of thought and a lot of proactiveness in this to bring a policy that I think meets the intent of the law as well as sort of fits our folks with, bringing in the students, bringing in the parents, bringing in the teachers to try to figure out how we can pull this together and not make everybody happy, but, get a broad swath of opinion. So I just really appreciate you guys putting in the work and the effort and not putting us behind the 8 ball here in, May to try to put a policy in place before school comes in. And it makes sense, the first bell to the last bell, and that's the way the law reads, so why would we go more strict? So I just appreciate you guys.
Mark, do we have an idea of what the consequences will be? If
We do. They're also laid out. That's part of the law is you have to put, consequences attached to that. So, we're going to do a lot of communication. Once this thing passed through, we're going to get communication out to kids. In fact, I know there's already a big buzz. It's going across the state since this applies to every public school in the state. But, one of the things for the secondary, middle school, high school, we're going to communicate that up front. The kids are going to know, the parents are going to know. But our first offense, like I said, we're just trying to change behavior, will be a detention. Second offense, 1 day of in school. And all these include parent contact. The third offense could be 3 days of in school or it could be out of school with that third, just depending on, the scenarios that are involved. And fourth offense, what we're going to do is we're going to just meet. We're going to try to meet with parents and pull the team together and figure out what do we need to be successful. What kind of planning do we need to do to make this work? Because obviously we've gone through step one, we've gone through step two, but we're going to take input from our parents on that to solve it together. And then of course, each 9-week period, we've talked through on why we want that reset for that chronic absenteeism. If we have, more cases than we may predict, but I'll tell you, and you guys know, this is a great community, great parents, and great kids. And I think, once these, rules are communicated, I think we're gonna see some good results.
Thank you.
One thing that makes me a little bit nervous about this, right? These kids are carrying around $1,000, $1,200 phones, whatever it could be, right? And us taking them away in secure office locations, and I know the policy says we're not liable, but I just get nervous about taking a device away. And
In secondary, we're not taking them away.
right,
We're not having that argument. We're just telling them to put them up. If they don't, then it becomes a defiance
Right.
issue. They've been doing what it says there for the elementary and intermediate for several years. And so I'm going to let
Okay.
Lisa speak to
so
that.
it's not a new practice.
That is not a new practice. In fact, a few years ago at the intermediate, we allowed cell phones at recess and at lunch, and it was an absolute nightmare. So we don't allow them now, and that is the practice that we've been using, is to have them bring their phone to the office. They check it in with a principal. I have discussed with the principals and taking a picture of the phone and having the kid sign, yep, that's my phone, so that, we don't have a phone that maybe is already damaged and then get blamed for that. But it has been working. We haven't received any pushback from parents on that. And that seems to be most effective for that age group, because we want our kids in class learning and not sitting in ISI if we can avoid it.
Okay. The other question, just one more question, and I should have had these before, I apologize, I just thought of this one. How do we handle athletics? Like, when is the bell? Is it
My
after
interpretation of the
practice?
bell would be the last bell of instruction of the school day. So when they walk out the door, they go on the bus or whatever, they're free to use their phone.
So walking over to baseball practice, I can begin using my phone, or football, or Yeah.
What is have you guys talked about that? Because that's really seventh hour, but
Seventh hour, yeah.
it's,
Once they go to athletics, once they're in the gym or baseball practice,
do we need that clarity in here? No?
we can, it wasn't clear to me. So, we can add that we'll just have to think about how to say that. But you guys have talked about that. Really, I think it would be, the coach would decide if he was going to allow it or not. But when those kids are walking over there, I wouldn't have any problem with that. I don't, this is just my view, and I don't even get a vote. But my view is, we're not trying to make this punitive. This is the law, and it's about instructional time.
Right.
If a kid has a phone out at baseball practice, Coach Scow's going to take care of it.
Yeah.
If kids got one out at basketball practice, those two basketball coaches are going to take care of it. I don't have any doubt that they can handle that. But if you want us to put it in there, we can add.
It's just, when I read it, I'm like, well, and I agree with everything you're saying. Like, I think they should be able to use them once they leave classroom instruction, but
That,
it's just not in here, and I worry about people having that. You'll get questions on that, so.
Well, maybe that's something we look at next year when the sunset happens on
Yeah.
this. Maybe, because what I'm curious to know too is the feedback from the principals and really the assistant principals that are dealing with all the discipline that's going to come from this. Because you're playing a shell game with your time, a lot of this, and so I'm curious to know what that's going to do to their day.
Yeah.
Some of this has already happened in the elementary schools, so it's not going to be an issue. But you get into the secondary side, and and you're gonna have assistant principal just for cell phones, I mean, it's gonna be a lot. I'm curious to know the feedback from those
Well,
administrators.
And if you can document that along the way, then we'll know next year what we need, if there's changes we need to make.
And we can change this policy.
We can change it anytime.
And so like, I was talking to Mark, if we find that the wiping at 9 weeks is just not being effective, right? And we have to sort of make that strict, we can do that. Or, if we're finding out our policy is too strict and we have to walk that back, so we're just seeing too much absenteeism, I think we can also do that. From what I understand, this is sort of a first swath to get us in compliance with the law. And we have the ability as a board and as a leadership group to take the feedback you're getting from your principals and your students and your parents and adjust it as long as it's within the intent of the law.
And Jared, I think the way we can handle what you were talking about, it's a good point. I think we'll put it in the handbooks, put it in the middle school and high school handbook about how they'll write it however they want. You guys approved those, so handbooks became the same as policy anyway, so you'll be approving those over the summer, and that's what we'll do.
Lane, did you want to hear from secondary principals?
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to know, what.
Thanks, Mark. I see some possible, I can see kids, as they're leaving 6th hour to go to 7th hour athletics. We got cheer and palm in the building. Of course, we got basketball in the building, Well, I'm going to basketball practice now, but they're walking down the hallway with their cell phone in their hand. Their instruction day is over. They're going to athletics, but it's in their, if they get it out in the hallway and passing is something that we have to consider.
Maybe it's defining those things in a handbook.
Yep.
Exactly.
Right.
And
Putting some borders on the confusion.
And that needs to be done by those people, the people at the high school, the people at the middle school, they walk through all those scenarios, like middle school, the cheerleaders being in the building. Well, that's a little different than kids that are walking over to the WAC. So they'll work through all that and they'll put that in
So I
the,
should have read the law, right? I haven't. Does the law state the first bell and the end bell, or is it bell to bell? Because there's two different ways to look at that, right? Bell to bell is that hour I'm in the classroom or 50 minutes, whatever it is.
here's the law. Bell to bell means the time between the first bell ringing at the start of the school day to begin the instructional time until the dismissal bell at the end of the day to end instructional time.
Okay.
So we're
Because
we're
we
basically.
used to define bell to bell that way, didn't we? Like
That's
start
what
and
we-
end
so
of
we're-
class.
that's what
But the law changes, yeah.
So we're using our interpretation of instructional time to end, not include athletics.
That's what, I mean,
Yep.
I want those guys to make that decision, but ultimately, I think that we need to define it. They need to define it. They'll put it in their books, and then we will, but I think they need the coaches to weigh in on that and those administrators.
Well, and you know this too, and you referred to this, when you have a kid that's got 6th-hour English in the 400 hall, and they're walking all the way to the gym, they're going to pass 20 teachers, and one of them is going to confront them on that, and then it's going to escalate into a,
You're correct. And there's 1,600 kids in there, so,
Yeah.
teachers don't know, I don't know everybody. I mean, you're right, though. An athlete can say, well, my instructional day is over, I'm going to basketball practice or whatever the case may be, and they get their phone out and they're walking through the hallways. Teachers don't know. A lot of cases, principals don't know. And so I think that's something we're going to have to discuss and talk about. When can they take the phone and put it in their hand in the building? I could see some issues there, definitely. And we just have to be clear on it. And our kids are compliant. I mean, these kids are pretty compliant. I'm not that worried about overall, but I do think there is some things there that we need to discuss and figure out, for sure.
If you have a kid that ends up in ISI with that being, that's definitely going to be a parent coming to you to,
well, and if it's,
we need it clearly defined for sure.
and if it's ISI, then obviously there's been more than one discussion about,
Sure.
so.
I will also say on the ISI at the high school and middle, they lose their test exemptions too. So on that second offense, with that cell phone out, and this year with test exemptions, those kids are crazy about test exemptions. So that, I think, is going to help us a lot at the high school, is they don't want to lose those test exemptions, the semester exemptions. So their second offense, not only do they go to ISI, but there goes other test exemptions as well. So.
I think too, one of the key things we need to keep in mind is the communication piece on the front end, letting our families and our community know how they can get a hold of their kids if they need to during the school day. Yep. And when we roll this out and we make sure that our families know what the law is and what our policy is, that we give the window and the opportunity to contact the front office. We will notify your child. We have an office phone if they need to use. Just letting them know that, we're not holding their little wildcats captive, that they can communicate with their child if need be and give them the right avenue as to what that looks like. I've talked at length with one of our neighboring school districts that implemented this 3 years ago, right after COVID. And they said probably the first 6 to 9 weeks were the most challenging. And it was just training up the community on, what the expectation was when parents can communicate with their kids. But they said they really, at this stage of the game, 3 years later, are just rocking and rolling and not having many issues at all, because that's the expectation.
We're putting a lot of emphasis on cell phones with this, but does it also apply to smartwatches, Gab watches down in the elementary school?
It does. So the law describes all the electronic devices as PEDs, personal electronic devices, and you can see on number 2 there, it says it's all of those things, but anything that has a cellular or Wi-Fi connection. Smartphones right there.
Is there an emergency section
At the bottom
there is
of-
on our policy.
On our policy.
So I wanted to touch base, if you don't mind pulling that piece up. I mean, the biggest feedback I've seen from the community so far, first of all, is they thought that the board had control of it. And we do somewhat, but really this is the new law and we have to comply and we have to put this policy in place. But 12 months from now, then we've got a little bit more say-so. So we, I think it's important to note that some of these things we would like to implement and some of them we have to implement and come up with the best way forward. But I have also seen a lot of questions about emergency situations.
If we are in an emergency situation, nobody's getting ISS for that.
Well, and if we
It's
were and
not
your
gonna be a
student pulled
problem.
it out, I'm sure they wouldn't be in trouble at home either. But
Yeah.
I just wanted to note that we did include that in here. you
And some of
know.
our kids with diabetes and different medical issues check their blood sugar by their phone now. They have a device on their arm. So we'll have to work through all those things, but I have a long-held belief that the people closest to the problem are the best equipped to solve the problem. So I think it was a good catch by you guys that on that 7th hour thing, that's still a little murky. We'll let them figure it out. They'll put it in the book and I'll bring it back to you guys. And if we feel like it needs to be in here, we can do that in the June meeting. We can do it in the end of June meeting. We could do it in the August meeting. So, but you're going to approve those handbooks anyway. So whatever they put in will be the same as policy.
My biggest, I'll stop talking, but last request is what Aaron said, just about talking with families. So a lot of times, I mean, we obviously, the handbook is provided, but if we could make extra emphasis on making sure our families know the policy and the consequences for the policy, I think that's kind of one of the most important pieces for me.
One of the, I agree with you totally. One of the reasons we brought this to you in May, right after the law was signed, is because we wanted parents and kids, before they left for the summer, to know what it is that the law is and what our policy is going to be about that. So we'll send out our policy, and we can send out that law. I have it on a PDF. It's not super technical. It's about 2 pages straightforward to let people know this year it's not really a board decision. The law says you, the board, will put a policy in place. Next year, you get to decide if that policy goes away, is modified, changed, whatever. But next year, it's this.
So we still let students bring their own laptops, right?
Yes.
So, we've all got kids, probably, a lot of us, and so I know mine, right? They're just gonna text message on their device. I mean, it's just, how are you gonna, I just don't, you're not gonna stop it totally. There's still gonna be communication between the kids and the parents. I mean, it's
Well,
gonna happen.
what we want active engagement. You gotta remember the goal. We're
Yeah.
trying to increase effective instructional time. Well, along with that, it comes with supervision of that teacher, and you gotta be active. You gotta be moving, you gotta be engaging. So you're exactly right, Jared. I mean, with, Google, I would predict that the Google Docs, because now it's real time and you can Google Doc, but, we're gonna have active teachers that are moving around and monitoring those, and we're still gonna strive to increase that instructional time.
There's a way around just about everything.
I know.
Yeah.
I think it's a good step. Try it out.
Yeah.
See if it works,
Yeah.
right?
My friend that is in Mustang superintendent, Charles Bradley, they implemented this last year, started the school this school year, and he said, amazingly, they had relatively no problems. So we'll just see. I mean, we'll run into some things we have to deal with, but we're dealing with stuff now.
Yeah. Okay.
What else?
Questions, comments?
The only thing I can think of is just talking back to the athletics sort of situation, and maybe the policy should read bell to door. Does that help? I mean, like from bell to door, that gets rid of the sort of the hallway usage at the end of the day. But then maybe that's just me being overly thinking about it.
I missed the very first part of it.
Oh, talking about the situation where someone has a 6-hour period, then goes to a 7th-hour athletic period, and the situation where they may have their cell phone out going in the hallway, going to the WAC or the football, maybe the policy should read bell to door. That way you don't punish the kids in the morning that show up early, but also very specifically say, not in the building until you're out the door.
Well, but those activities are in the building too, cheerleading and band and.
Middle school sports are first hour, right? So we're backwards with middle school that,
Yeah.
I think with just communicating and enforcing the rules or the consequences early on, that'll prevent that. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah. I don't want to like pigeonhole you guys because it says bell to bell, right?
I think
But-
Drew's right. Like when you look at some of the things that our principals will determine and defining on the gym, the cheer room, the pom room, I think that's the location, that's the destination. And I have a feeling that's how they will solve that, where it'll be very clear as to when the instructional time is over, but when that device can be taken out. And that eliminates the confusion like you were talking about, Lane, when you're walking from one end of the building and you've got, 500 yards before you get there. Every other kid is looking and like, wait, that's not fair. They get to have their phone out. Why can't I have my phone out? We can solve that through those communications and putting some definition on those locations.
So you can bring it back to us September, October. Once you figure that out, we can change the language, as needed. So.
We can. When somebody makes a motion, if you're going to make one, we need to add that, what I put in blue there, if you want to change that.
Okay. I make a motion, we approve board policy FNH cell phone, personal electronic device policy with the addition of item number 1 in the policy, adding in parentheses, from the first bell ringing to the start of the school day until the dismissal bell at the end of the school day.
I'll second.
All right, got a motion by Jared and a second by Neil. Can we get a vote?
Derek,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Jared, yes, Katie,
yes.
Lane.
Yes. You didn't even need readers for that.
That's good.
All right, moving on to item 5, consent agenda. Discuss and vote to approve all consent items. These items may be approved by one board motion unless any board member desires to have a separate vote on any or all of these items. Any questions or comments on consent agenda? It's a long one. Questions, comments? All right, I'll make a motion that we approve consent agenda items A through V.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Lane, second by Derek. Can we get a vote?
Derek,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Jared, yes, Katie,
Yes.
Lane.
Yes. All right, moving on to item 6, financial report.
Okay, excuse me. Okay, we will start with the graphs. General fund, you look down at the collections, our total collections are up 3.2 million from last month. Year to date, our over collection total has gone up 761,599 from last month. So in April, we actually started collecting above our estimated tax revenue for the year, and so that's where the bulk of that over collection amount comes from. And then building fund, same thing, over collections is up 74,667 from last month, and that's also in the taxes. Total collections are up 85,000 from last month. Child nutrition, our collections are up 293,471 from last month. Bond fund, there's been no change. And sinking fund, we collected an additional 556,714 in taxes. And so just remember that fund just builds until we make that big sinking fund payment in July. So, questions about anything?
Questions or comments? No? Good information. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to item 7, executive session. Vote to convene or not to convene into executive session for the purpose of discussing employments listed on attachment C, 25 OS 307B1. Part 2, discussing reemployment of certified and support staff is listed on attachment B, 25 OS 307B1.
I make a motion not to convene.
I'll second.
A motion by Jared to not convene, second by Derek. Can we get a vote?
Derek,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Jared, yes, Katie,
Yes.
Lane.
Yes. All right, moving on to item 8. Action item, Part A, discuss and take possible action on employment is listed on attachment C. Make a motion that we approve employment is listed on attachment C.
I'll second.
Motion by Lane, second by Derek. Can we get a vote?
Derek,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Jared, yes, Katie,
Yes.
Lane.
Yes. All right, moving on to item B. Discuss and take possible action on reemployment of certified and support staff is listed on attachment B.
I'll make a motion we approve attachment B.
I'll second.
Motion by Jared, second by Derek. Can we get a vote?
Derek,
Yes.
Neil,
Yes.
Jared, yes, Katie,
Yes.
Lane.
Yes. All right, moving on, let's see, moving on to item 9, new business.
None.
No new business, all right. Item 10, superintendent's report.
So our there's our enrollment for the month. As compared to last month, we've gained a student. It's been just steady all year long. We've been really blessed to not have that 225 student bump this year, even though that is money. We also didn't have, it would have really just really overpopulated our schools. And a year from now, we're going to have a school, and 2 years from now, we'll have 2 new schools. So I would guess that the growth will return next fall based on all the houses that I see going up around here. I wanted to give you some HR information that the ladies in HR and Patty gave me. I think it's pretty telling. You'll get my point in just a minute. We have 388 certified staff members. We have 210 support staff for a total number of employees of 598. So not this school year, not last August, but the August before, the 23-24 school year, we hired 94 certified teachers, and we had 56 support staff for a total of 150 new staff members. That's 25% of that almost 600 teachers. That was our first year here. That was 2 years, not the school year, the school year before.
So just to be clear, those are new positions?
Those are new positions. So people left those positions, we hired back. So those were new, not new hires like we didn't have that teacher before. Somebody left and we
So they're
hired
not new positions. Those are filling positions where people.
That's
left.
exactly
New
right.
employees.
New.
Okay, so new hires this school year. Remember, we had 150 total the first year. We have 98, so 62 support, 36 support, 62 certified. Now here's a projection for next year. This is based on the number of people that we've already hired, the number you hired tonight, and the certified staff that we have or support online that we're advertising for somebody to come to Piedmont. We have 30 support certified, 5 support. So we expect to have 35 to 40 staff members. I'm talking about total staff members. 35 to 40 we're going to hire next year. You look back 2 years ago, 150. What we talk about a lot in this district is making this a destination place, a place where teachers feel like they're treated well, kids feel like they're treated well, that we build relationships with kids, that we develop a culture of collaboration with our teachers. And that's what our mission statement says. That's right there. On the right, for the core values, authentic relationships, positive culture and collaboration, safe environment, and integrity. The fact that we are going from 150 total new staff to 98 this year to 35 or 40 says that people want to stay in Piedmont. That means that our teachers, our staff members feel supported. And that's because of all the things you guys do and all the things those people out there do. So the recipe we have, I'm giving you data. You like data, right, Jared?
Oh, I'm going to ask a question here in a minute.
Okay.
You put numbers up there, right?
Let's hear it.
So my question is, 2 years ago, how many total employees did we have?
We probably didn't have that. I don't know the answer to that. That 598, we've hired.
I'm going to tell you, a portion of those numbers you're looking at are new positions.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
refilling existing roles, but new positions that we've added because of growth. And so it makes the story even different. better.
Yeah, better, yeah. We do have some new, we put a whole new team at the middle school last year, right? So that's four people, 4 new teachers. We've added an SRO, so we've had, several new hires, which makes the point all the better, right?
Yeah, I bet you there's 20, 25 positions that we've added just in total staff members out of that. Just guessing, but it'd be neat, it'd be kind of cool to know the number, but.
Yeah. So the point go ahead.
Oh, so to say it another way, you went from a 75% retention rate to like a 94% retention rate.
Yeah, we've got, people want to stay here. Now, we've got two people out here that are leaving us, but it's for a pretty good reason, right? They're retiring. We have 2 retirees. If people are done with a district, if they're done, they don't feel supported in their district, they're much more likely to retire or go to another district. What I'm saying in a long-winded way is that we believe in treating people well. We're paying the same money that Oklahoma City and Edmond and all the others are paying. It's not about money for teachers and staff. It's about how they feel like they are treated, the culture, and the relationships. And I believe we've got a good one here. Not because of me, because all those people and all those teachers and all those support staff in all those buildings. Culture is not one person. Culture is what all of us do. And that's what we have in our buildings. Okay. Any other questions on that?
No.
Last thing, baccalaureate in 32 minutes. Graduation is the 15th, May 15th, this Thursday at the Bennett Center. We are providing 1 free picture for our seniors. The Bennett Center is not, it's just a 1-year deal. It's just a stopgap to get us to the new arena. But the new arena is not open yet, and they're tearing down the old one. So this is the only place, the only game in town. So we're going to give a free picture, a printed picture that they can pick up when they get their diploma, right? Mark, isn't that? Yeah. And then graduation begins at 6 o'clock, and it'll be live streamed. And get there early. Everybody's got to go through metal detectors. And the last thing, these 2 pictures, those are 2 separate pictures. That is what our middle schoolers are learning currently their science on. It's 2 old rooms. Does that look familiar, Ms. Pruitt? It's pretty sad. I've got some other pictures if you want to see them, but the bottom line is it is in desperate need of a renovation. Remember last year we renovated our family and consumer science rooms, the 2 rooms. We're going to go through and renovate these 2 rooms at a considerable cost. It's going to be about $180,000 to get those 2 rooms, but they will be nice new rooms, and that will change the way kids look at science at the middle school. So the new rooms will be new plumbing, new dishwasher, sink, emergency shower, chem-resistant countertops, the big thick ones instead of what they have there. New ceilings, new flooring, millwork, new cabinets, and improved lighting, and a fresh coat of paint. So good things are happening in this district. That's my report.
Sounds good. Good stuff. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, guys.
All right, moving on to, turn this over to item 11, adjournment.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Jared, second by Neil. Can we get a vote?
Derek?
Yes.
Neil?
Yes.
Jared, yes. Katie?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes. All right, the time is 5:31.